Zadandani, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. We are returning to a previous video, which I will link it up in the iCards as long as I remember. But if you are interested in that, definitely check it out because it was really a lot of work went into that. Or not really, but the point is that this is basically that video, but slightly different. So once you've watched this one, definitely check it out. But anyways, guys, we are looking back at the quirks of One for All. Now, obviously, because of the fact that this is delving into manga spoilers, if you haven't read the manga or at least seen halfway through season 5, then probably should get out of this video. But if you're not worried about spoilers, cool, let's get into it. So, let's talk about a few things. First off, what are the quirks of One for All that we already know? First off is All for One's brother. We're going to call him One for All because of the fact that that's kind of what he is. He is the starting point. Now, his quirk was a stockpiling quirk and the quirk to pass down his quirk. This gave him a good amount of strength. I'm going to say that this, because of the fact that this is the beginning of the quirk, this is where the super strength that All Might and Deku happen to share. The next quirk that we know, that we found out about, is Dangoro Banjo's quirk, Black Whip, who was the 5th user of One for All, and his quirk basically is a capture type quirk, is a capturing quirk that is very similar to Kamui Woods, and keep that in mind because I'm going to be talking about that later in the video. Next up is Nana Shimura's quirk. This is actually spoilers even for me. If you haven't, this does not actually get explained in volume 23. This is explained later down the line during the current arc in the manga for Japan, where basically Nashimura's quirk is float, and Deku is getting that, apparently, during that time. I don't know the exact timing, so don't question it. Just know that that is something that is important. I know that, and I've done a little bit of research, but don't worry too much about it. And then that's it. Those are currently the only quirks we know for a fact are in this quirk. And only 2 of those are actually within the 6 quirks that Banjo just talks about. The rest of the quirk, One for All's quirk, as well as All Might's quirk, I don't think those are actually in there. And the same goes for Deku's quirk. I don't think that Banjo is talking about them in his little talk with Deku. And yeah, that's insane to think about. Now, let's actually talk briefly about Deku and All Might's quirks. First off, Deku's quirk. I personally do believe that Deku does have a quirk, and that it was stolen by All for One. Or, yeah, All for One. I'm always worried about the names. Because of the fact that his doctor is most likely the same doctor as the one that works with the League of Villains. If, like, seriously, I've done a video about this, which I'm not sure if I'm going to link it up in the iCards, but seriously, the doctor that is shown in Volume 1 looks almost identical to the one that is in Volume 23. And you barely see him. So, while it's not necessarily perfect, it seems odd for the 2 doctors to be that closely related. But, yeah. We don't know what Deku's quirk is, and while we do want to know, it's definitely an interesting thing to think about. I do think that at some point he is going to unlock that quirk, though. And that is actually a pretty important point. As for All Might's quirk, oh boy, I do want to talk about this as well. All Might's quirk is likely boost up, or bulk up, I guess would also be another good name for it. Basically, he can he can go into his muscle form. The main reason I think that this is actually in his quirk is because of the fact that he's still able to use it, even though his his quirk, All for One, or One for All, I mean, is completely kaput. Like, he cannot punch at all. He does not have any strength within him. Yet he can still go into his muscle form for for a very short amount of time. So that's interesting. Interesting to think about. Which does make me think that at some point that quirk will also be somewhere in there. Or that he will be able to use it. Now, that leaves the other 4 quirk users. As far as we're aware, All Might was the first one to be thought of to be quirkless. The rest of them, nope, not at all. So, that, or at least because of the fact that he said 6. So, yeah. Now, first off, there is the guy, I don't know which side of his face it is, but he has a Thunderbolt scar or tattoo. The exact details aren't clear. I need to rewatch the last episode because it does show him briefly, but it's so brief that you can't tell. Obviously, once we get the actual episode in next season, which hopefully will be the first episode, but I can't guarantee it because there is a lot going on during that time. The Thunderbolt leads me to believe that he is at least a Thunder-based hero. He is the only hero, though, that I think, well, not only, but one of the only people that we can actually say for certainty what his quirk is. The rest of them, you can't tell. 2 of them are blacked out, and 1 of them is short. So, but since he has the Thunderbolt, I'm willing to place my bets that he is able to use lightning at least to some extent. Just zap. I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's the easiest to figure out what his quirk is going to be. Let's talk about the 6th user, though. Like I said, he is short. He is the last one that we can actually see his full appearance in. And he was the previous user before Nana Shimura. Now, his quirk, something just points me towards size manipulation. Why? Because of the fact that he is, well, short. And that's not the only reason. As I said before, Kamui Woods and Banjo both have a similar quirk. Basically, a capture-based quirk that happens to look very similar. Kamui shoots out twigs, and Banjo shoots out Black Whip. Now, while there is some theory there that I will be talking about tomorrow, I think it's interesting to think about that the 2 quirks are so similar. And that also leads me to wonder, what if he was actually the whole instance in the very as in the first page of the manga and the first whatchamacallit, the first few scenes in the actual episode may have actually been a spoiler as to what the superpowers will be. It's not actually the first page that has all of it, but it's still a good amount. So don't at me. I know that it's not the first page of the manga. But a good amount of it is actually shown there. So in that case, what if all of the quirks are the quirks that were shown there, it's also kind of weird that three characters above all others have, of all of the pro heroes, besides the ones that we actually get to know, three of them are constantly showing up. Kamui Woods, who got really high. Holy crap. The fact that he's in the top 10 is insane to think about. Mount Lady and Death Arms, all of them show up a lot. And they're kind of like Team Rocket in a certain extent. Basically just showing up randomly. So what if those three are actually a pretty big hint as to what the actual quirks are? On top of that, I'm also going to add Backdraft in there, mostly because of the fact that his quirk is kind of basic, and lots of people actually, while he doesn't show up as much, there are other people who have shown up that happen to have his quirk. I mean, take for example the water-based quirk that is shown off to express how quirk registration works. They actually do talk quite extensively about it, and that makes me think that that's actually pretty important. Water-based quirks is pretty important. And the same goes for Koda, who is the son of the water hose heroes. The fact of the matter is that they all have water-based quirks. So those ones are all kind of important. Now, Death Arms, we're just going to assume he's the main power, so don't worry about him too much. But as for Mount Lady, size manipulation. The short guy. User number 6. Now, the main reason I say that he's the one who has the size manipulation, and that's not the only reason why I think that he does, is because of the fact that, one, he is short. He is short, and it's going to be funny if they do something along the lines of that he got picked on for being short, and his quirk happens to also be strength, to make him grow big or make him grow small. It's let's be honest, it's going to be funny as heck. And he's shorter than Deku, so that's why I'm really leaning towards that. And also the fact that he wears a trench coat. I don't know. Something just feels like size manipulation there. But the other thing is that, well, a certain villain. There's a villain that has been showing up quite a lot recently, and while you guys have seen him in the actual, if you're just an anime watcher, he gets a lot more screen time in the current volume and the current arc, or arcs, I guess. Both arcs actually give him quite a lot of time. Basically, he's a giant, and he's huge, like bigger than you can imagine, or he's really big. The exact details, no one's 100% certain how tall the guy is, because he's shown to be like as tall as trees, or maybe he can punch through a mountain, and honestly, it's hard to tell. But he's huge. And while we can't expect that Mount Lady will probably be fighting him, in fact, I'm pretty sure that that's actually shown in the current arc, but I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, I think that that's going to be really interesting to see that the two of them have a fight. But I feel like Deku is also going to have to fight him at some point. How soon? Not sure. But I do feel like he will have to at some point. And using his other quirks just doesn't seem likely. Having a quirk that can make him bigger is actually going to be coming in pretty handy, especially considering how many large villains are showing up recently. Like, Overhaul went giant. This guy is a giant. And honestly, if it seems odd that they wouldn't. So I would not be surprised if they at least put him in there. Give Deku something to be similar to size manipulation. Especially if it's the one guy that happens to be short. It's going to be funny. I don't care. Now for the first two users. Like I said, water seems pretty prevalent. So putting him in So putting all of those water heroes to be telling us that, oh, yeah, one of the quirks is going to be water based seems likely. But I'm actually leaning towards the fact that this could be the third hero, the third person who's actually used this quirk. Mostly because this is a woman character, at least from what it looks like. Probably the only other female besides Nana Shimura who has used One for All. So I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that she could be a water-based hero. I'm not 100% certain on what her quirk is, and neither for the first user either. Both of these guys are just kind of there, and it's hard to tell or put my finger on what the heck is going to be going on with these two. Mostly because, like I said, they have shadows around them. So I don't know. But as for the second user, honestly, I feel like the second user is going to be the last person that Deku is going to get. Obviously, the third and the second are going to be the last two. But because of the fact that the second one is actually really important. Now, believe it or not, I actually thought that the second user was going to have Explosion as their quirk. But I decided against that for obvious reasons. And Nana Shimura was actually going to have this quirk. Now, obviously, there are certain things that, that actually makes a lot more sense to go to Nana. But, honestly, this is an interesting quirk. Basically, what this quirk is going to be called is Restore. The reason I gave this quirk originally to Nana is because of the fact that Shigaraki, her grandson, is a destruction quirk. Basically, anything he touches gets destroyed. So having it be a mutation on his quirk honestly would make a lot of sense. It's sad, but it would make some sense. Now, obviously, a lot of quirks do just happen to happen, being completely different from their family. And while I can't necessarily pinpoint anyone specific off the top of my head, it is a thing. But the second user could have the quirk Restore. And basically what this quirk is it's a restoring quirk. Basically anyone that they touch, or maybe they can do they have to do some other thing, it will restore the person's quirk. Now, there's a reason that I want this quirk to be somewhere in this whole tree of quirks. And the main reason is because of the fact that there are 3 people who are currently without their quirks. They've lost them and they are gone. First off is Deku. Deku was born quirkless, and we've talked about the theory extensively that he did have a quirk, and that I think that that's important. It is very important that he had a quirk. Next is Mirio, his closest friend, who they're trying to find a way to give him back his quirk, but no one knows how, because maybe Eri, but Eri's quirk is reversing, and it's a dangerous quirk. No one's 100% certain if they should use it. It could make him lose everything, which honestly would be really, really sad. And the last person is Ragdoll, one of the Pussycats. She doesn't have her quirk anymore, her search quirk. All for One stole it. He's stolen a lot of quirks, and that's something that honestly stuck out to me. He stole a lot of quirks, and the idea that he stole so many quirks makes me wonder, how did quirks remain pretty common? during all this time. If quirks were constantly getting better and he was constantly grabbing them during this entire time, then how did people continue to use their quirks? Honestly, how? It honestly doesn't make too much sense. Obviously, he's not going to be able to get every single quirk, but the fact that it was able to get up to 100 or 80% of the population having a quirk, that's odd. It's odd to think that it would have gotten to that height during during all this time while he's constantly stealing these quirks. And he's stealing them. They no longer have them. Take Deku and Ragdoll as examples. They don't have them. So what if, during this time, there happened to be, during the second generation, someone who could restore quirks? Someone who went underground and kind of probably was one of the vigilantes, quote unquote, mentioned in the in the Vigilantes series. He would go around secretly and give people back their quirks so that they wouldn't have to worry so much, no matter what the reason was that they lost their quirks. And they would be able to stand up and fight once again to go and take down All for One. One for All would see this guy, realize, holy crap, this guy is giving people back their quirks. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to give this guy my quirk so that we can continue this work, but he will also be able to help countless people down the line. And Deku will eventually get this quirk, giving him the ability to restore any quirk that was lost. The quirk of Mirio, his friend and comrade. The quirk of Ragdoll, who lost it to All for One. And to restore his own quirk. And maybe even an even better option, to be able to restore One for All back to All Might, giving him back his full power and giving him great strength to help Deku in the actual fight against One for All, or All for One, I mean. Honestly, I don't see All for One's brother as being someone who would go directly to find people who would have offensive quirks. Quirks that would be able to take him down, to take down this awful person. I don't see him as being that person. He wants to help people. So, the first quirk he looks for is a restorative quirk. Restore, where all future users would be able to restore any quirk that was stolen from them. Meaning that all future users would become stronger and would be able to give the quirks to anyone who got them stolen in the first place. It honestly would be a really interesting quirk. Now, one last thing. We all believe that One for All is a emitter type quirk. Transformation quirks aren't included as far as we're aware, and neither are mutant quirks. But honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that perhaps they could have actually implemented those two quirks. Those two types of quirks. Like I said, mutation would be All Might and the size manipulation guy. Both of these quirks do seem at least somewhat likely, but honestly, I'm not sure. There's a lot to actually be seen in the future for all of these quirks, and while I do have my own theories about all of them, I'm curious to know what you guys think. And I'm curious to know if you guys have actually seen the new stuff for My Hero Academia. Of course, if you are excited for next season, then definitely let me know. And of course, leave your own theories down in the comments below. If you have your own theories, make sure to use the hashtag theory review so that I can talk about them in my next fan theory review video. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and ring that notification bell. And of course, if you want to support the channel even more, then definitely check out all of the links down in the description below, including my Patreon, my merch store, and my book, as well as all of my social medias. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. But on!